And the truth is, if nothing can stand in the way of our own personal obstacles, nothing can stand in the way of any obstacles that we perceive in the world either. Nothing. Not racism, not poverty, not homelessness, not hunger, not divisiveness, not any of the things that we say and we feel like they're so complicated and they're so deeply rooted and they're so whatever. There is nothing that can stand in the way of this power.
Today we're finishing up the month and our annual theme, and we've been talking about hold the vision, be the power, and soar with love. And we've started with the fundamentals. We're going back to the fundamentals of science of mind and what the creative process is, and what it means to know what the vision is, and then to hold that vision, and then to be the power and allow that power, that law, to be fully ignited, and now to soar with love. And it's using all of this, we get a sense of the absolute infinite possibilities and the opportunities that we actually each have for our own lives. To soar with love, to have those opportunities and to make those decisions. About a year and a half ago, Petra and I were at the Centers for Spiritual Living Ministers Conference in Asheville, North Carolina. We decided to go. We wanted to be with our colleagues and connect with colleagues and see what they're doing. And it so happened in Asheville, in the woods and beautiful campus, Dr. John Waterhouse on the last evening decided to do a fire walk and lead a fire walk for all the ministers. And I decided to go that night, and I experienced what it meant for me to face any kind of obstacle, fear, whatever, and to believe that I could walk on fire and do exactly that. And I did that, and it transformed my lives like this burning thing. It allowed me to soar in my life and in my ministry in ways that I had not before I did that. And so because that was so transformative for me, I just thought of all of you. I do that sometimes.
Surely you want to walk on fire too.
Don't forget, you have to. Yes. And I thought of, I want everybody in our community to go through this transformation, or at least have the opportunity to be in the energetic of what this could bring. And so in that moment, I said, John, you have to come to Dallas. And literally within a week, we scheduled that. And many of you who was here, many of you were here, last September, and either participated in holding the consciousness, got the transformation through some way, and or walked on fire. There was over 100 of us that did that. And I was catching most of you, right? Yes. So I was catching most of you walking across a fire, and John witnessed me doing that. And after that evening, immediately before he left, he said, Karen, you have to do this. You have to do this in your ministry. You're a natural. And I made a decision to sign up. I talked with Petra, and we looked at our Minister's Education Fund, and I said, I want to go get trained to become a certified Firewalk instructor. Now, all of those were decisions. And so right in this moment, I'm just going to put a pin right here in the midst of this to say, I invite you each to make a decision to take my Power of Decision class that comes up a week from Monday. It's 4 weeks. Yes? To decide to understand how decisions can so unfold our lives, 1 decision, 2 decisions, 3 decisions, 4, in ways that we can't even understand. And the outcome of going to this, it's called a FIT training, a Firewalking Instructor Training. The result of that for me and for you is that I have learned how to soar. And I'm bringing all these processes and energy and the learnings back to our community so that we all can soar together.
You thought she was amped up before. Right? But imagine if along the way, any one of those decisions hadn't been made or hadn't been followed through on, right? And how often we say, well, I don't know what I want, or I'm afraid of limiting myself with a decision. I'm not sure, whether that's a good idea. Let me read you from our book of the month. Your place in life. Your place in life is to become an outlet for life's wisdom, intelligence, love, beauty, and creativeness. That's your place in life. Your relationship to life is that you are of like nature to life. You are in it, and it is you. Some part of you exists as pure, unmanifest spirit. This side of your nature is superior to anything that happens to you. You can prove this easily enough by this simple experiment. Someday, when you feel depressed, unhappy, or melancholy, sit quietly by yourself and begin mentally to climb out of your difficulties. Push your thought up through every obstruction, practicing the affirmations and denials that we teach in all of our classes that you've been reading about in this book. If you continue in this practice long enough, you will find yourself emerging in some part of your being. I have to do this with this handheld mic. Sorry. Which has never been troubled. You will be demonstrating that some part of you lives above confusion. Through this simple act, you will have demonstrated that you have the freedom to be unhappy, and that you also have the freedom to convert this unhappiness into joy. You will be proving that you are an individual, but an individual who can draw on an invisible power. That is your place in life, to soar, to express, to be all that you can be. And this is the very impulse of life, that it is moving in all of creation. It's what gets you out of bed in the morning. It's what causes the rain to fall and the hummingbird to drink nectar from the flower. The impulse of life to express itself. Right? And we're a place of that. We're a place where we can consciously understand and see and know that this is the truth of who we are. We call that impulse love. Not human love, not love like compassion, not love like a relationship. We call the impulse of life itself love. Life loves so fully and completely that it gave itself into you as you. To find a unique way to express itself as only you can. And everything about love, everything about that life is lovingly given. So when we talk about hold the vision, we set the mental equivalent. We've talked about that at the beginning. We talked about be the power. We have to actually use the tools and techniques. We have to understand the creative process and participate in it deliberately and consciously. And last week, Michael Brundy blew us all away. Be the master of your thinking. A fundamental practice in metaphysics, in New Thought, in the science of mind. And here's the deal. Karen and I will stand up here, and we will give you an unconditional money-back guarantee that if you do these things, your life will soar. We had you all stand up a couple weeks ago, didn't we? How many people's lives have been utterly transformed because they walked into a Science of Mind or a New Thought community somewhere along the way, and they began practicing? See, it's not enough to just talk about it. You can just say, oh, these are nice thoughts, nice philosophy, right? It's the actual doing of it, the actual doing of it. And the results are guaranteed. We teach you the tools, we teach you the techniques, and we walk side by side in learning how to use them together. And Karen did an extreme version of that.
Yeah, let's just call it extreme spirituality. So, yeah, last weekend I went to Northern California and spent 3 days with 11 other people that I knew nothing about going in. And I barely knew the man who started this firewalking global movement, Tali Burkan. A lot of people know him because he started it in 1973. Can y'all hear me okay? Okay, all right, just checking. And so we had 3 12-hour days where we practiced. We practiced. And it started with the practice of getting to trust one another. We started there, to trust the community we were in, because we didn't know each other coming in. Some did. Some had actually taken this training before, and they were back to go deeper in this training and to serve as like staff for us. And so we started with some processes, and then one of the first big transformative processes, we did a trust fall, where you're 5 feet above the ground and you're falling into strangers' arms and all that kind of good stuff. And then it moved on through the weekend, and we kept practicing. And what we were practicing, what Tali had us practice, was to pay attention. To pay attention. To pay attention in every moment. And to know that it is easy. It's not hard. Life doesn't have to be hard. That it's easy. And that we can move through things, obstacles. I mean, we literally had some obstacles and things like that we could move through that. And he comes from this type of spiritual principle thinking. It was clear. He talked about the law of attraction and all this. So he does what he calls extreme spirituality. So I got to spend time with him all 3 days. And at the end of the time, he sat in a chair in the living room with us. And he started speaking. And he had shared some of his story, like he had attempted suicide twice and actually succeeded once. He had been hit by a car as a pedestrian, and it had broken all of the vertebrae in his neck, and his neck had to be, et cetera, et cetera. We got to hear those kind of things. He had beaten cancer and all this. But what struck me the most is he practiced this. And he was the first person that I've spent time around where the presence of him made me weep. He was so fully present as the divine and knew who he was in the world. And he even did magic tricks. And at one point he said the greatest magic there is the magic moved the guy that tried to kill himself twice to the happiest person on the planet. And I really got how he, in this training, this Firewalking Instructor Training, was all about, it doesn't matter what I know to do, I must practice it. And he had us do that for 3 days, and I'm continuing to practice.
So I'm going to, from our book here, I want to read this. We never have to surrender anything that really belongs to life. We surrender only that which is opposed to it. Take time frequently to become still in your thought and let the barriers of your personality slip away. Think of yourself as one with the whole. At first, you may feel a sense of separation, and then gradually there will come a sense of being merged with something bigger, something more. You will not be less yourself. You will be more. Infinitely more yourself. Try to feel that there is no barrier between you and life. And that's the practice of those trust falls and the walking on fire and the trusting the process, right? What we surrender, what we burn away is the false idea of who we are and how life works. The false idea that there's anything we should be afraid of. That's what we're surrendering so that we can be more ourselves. Mm-hmm. Are you going to talk about this experience right here?
Yes, I am. I so love us. So, the third day, last night, we had, every night, we would build a fire. And we would collectively, some would lead it, the building of the fire, and then we'd walk on fire. So I walked on fire 3 consecutive nights. The second night was a circle fire. That we built it in a circle, like a labyrinth. It literally looked like a labyrinth, a small labyrinth. And, I just walked around in a circle until I felt like I internally knew it was time to get off the fire. And on this third night, it was our graduation night. It was a big deal. We were to wear light-colored clothes so we could get pictures like us all standing on this 20-foot fire walk and all that. And the only issue with that was there was a torrential storm coming in, and it rained all day. And while we were doing other processes in Tali's living room, and I did some processes in the rain, basically, we just kept watching it rain. Now, the wood was under the tarp, so that wasn't a big deal. But mind you, everything was getting soaking wet. So we were told to come back that night, and we did. And I did not dress appropriately because I didn't pack appropriately, it seems. I had on tennis shoes and cotton clothes, no rain jacket, and it was cold. And so I just want you to get the feel, and it's raining. And we get out there, and Kevin, the leader, said, okay, the staff is not going to touch this fire. You all have to build this yourself, the students. And he said, and Karen, you're leading the group. We had to pick the pieces. We had to lay the pieces out. We laid it out in a 20-foot railroad tie. It's called a railroad tied fire, We had to help it along, We had to tend it in the pouring rain. It was something. And
I was sneakers when she came home. They were completely in mud.
I was in mud to here. I was cold. And so we did that. And we tended it, and we turned it, and we tossed it, and we brought from the bottom up to the top, and then we spread out 20 feet of coals. And then we all walked on it. I walked on it 3 times. Of course, my feet were so cold, I didn't feel any fire. Now, mind you, at the very beginning, Kevin said, well, it's all right, we'll probably all get colds. Well, guess what I did in that moment? They don't know me that well. And I said, oh, no, I denied that right there. But I had to watch my mental. I had to practice it through the whole evening. I am one with God, I'm totally healthy. I'm one with God, I'm totally healthy. And if I need to, I'll buy some cold calm. That's it. But anyway, one with God, I'm totally healthy. But here's what I learned through that. There is no situation, no circumstance, no condition that once we truly believe that we can be this, we can soar, we can have what we want, torrential downpour, we built that fire. We walked on that fire. We celebrated. We just didn't get the pretty pictures. Okay. And it was amazing that I got to have that experience that, that this community is soaring no matter what. We're growing, we're expanding, we're supporting each other, we're loving each other, we're doing the principle. This is what I brought back, like no matter. There's no condition, there's no situation, there's no circumstance. We're building this fire and soaring as love, as this community. And it taught me that really I can move through anything.
Yeah, and think about it. How many times do we set an intention? We have a spiritual intention. We decide we want to manifest something. We just want to be happier. We want to feel the divine presence more. We want to create something in our lives. And doesn't it sometimes just start raining? Right? It starts raining in our own lives in some form or fashion. And what do? We make meaning out of it. I'm going to get a cold. We're not going to be able to build this fire, right? We make meaning out of the rain instead of making meaning and continuing to be committed to what we're doing and recognize that there's nothing too big for the universal power and presence to handle. Nothing, no obstacle, no situation, no circumstance that is too big for the infinite presence and power to handle, period. End of sentence. It doesn't matter what it is or how big it looks. Ernest Holmes says this: life is the giver of everything. It is, in a sense, both the giver and the gift. It is both itself, the infinite, transcendent, mystery, magical, mysterious universe of everything, and it's also you, the immanent presence of the divine. This life is a perfect unity. Therefore, there is nothing between it and you. Nothing. Nothing. And every time that we train ourselves, we train our consciousness, we train our minds, we train our willingness to step boldly out in our faith, in our holding the vision and being the power and mastering our thinking, every time we do that, all of life is present. All of life is there to support us, regardless of how much it rains at any one given moment. Now, let me be really clear. Karen and I talk about this. I talk about this a lot. The science of mind does not teach that it is raining so that you can learn a lesson. I'm going to learn a lesson in accepting. I'm going to learn a lesson in making it okay. I'm going to learn a lesson in fighting through it. I'm going to learn a lesson in not cursing it. No, it's raining because it's raining. That's why it's raining.
Think of all the good from the rain.
Right, exactly, right? So first of all, that's true. And second of all, when it rains in our lives, it's not about life is trying to teach us a lesson. It is that there is a lesson available to us if we are willing to engage in it. Do you see the difference? There is nothing out there saying, well, you came in this lifetime to learn about being abused. You came into this lifetime to get over being traumatized. You came into this lifetime to fix your prosperity or whatever it is. No, what did we say? You are here to be life as you, to be the outlet for love and joy and manifestation and creativity. That is what we are here for. So these things aren't about learning lessons because something else is determining that. Do you see the difference? Stuff happens, it rains. The question is, do we trust what we trust? Do we know what we know? Do we walk the way that we walk? Do we act based on our faith or not? And so we have the opportunity to do that. And I think of these less as lessons and more as opportunities to practice. To practice being aligned in how life is showing up as me. Now, Karen came home with a really powerful story about that alignment.
Yeah, so every single moment, I knew at least going in, one, that I was going to learn how to lead firewalks for our community. I knew that. I didn't know how I was. I sort of read something and I'd heard, okay, we're also going to break some boards, learn how to do that, and walk on shards of glass. We all get to do that too if we choose in this community. And what I didn't know is there was something that was going to be presented. And on the third day, in Tolly's living room, there was an opportunity where Kevin stood up and he had a 5-inch needle, sewing needle. And he stuck it through his hand. And I watched that. And then he broke us into 2 groups, 5 of us each, sitting on the floor in circles together. And it was no quickly as the needles were passed out to everyone, whether you're going to do it or not, you got a needle, that the woman next to me just went, and I just went, okay. Now, mind you, the whole weekend, Kevin would say, unless you're willing to move through this yourself, you can't lead it, okay? He wouldn't certify that anybody could lead any of these processes. And so I held the needle. I got clear. I even, just in case, put a little alcohol on my hand. I said, where? I got very clear on where it was to go, way back here in my hand. And I put the needle to my hand, and I just sat. And I got very clear in the alignment with myself, inside myself, that this was not mine to do. I got very clear on that. Like, I didn't care what people thought. I didn't care if everybody did it but Karen. I didn't care. Inside of me, aligning with who I am, it said, no, not today. Okay? And then I took the opportunity to ask, well, what lesson, what opportunity do I have through this? And I had been working, some of you know this, I have been working on something for a few years, and it's to consciously choose what I put in my body. I've spoken about it, and I have not succeeded at it. And I asked this needle, for me, I haven't succeeded, okay, because it only matters, do I think I have or not? And so I asked this needle, and basically the answer was, you made a conscious choice not to put your body through this. So don't you think it's about time you make a conscious choice what you put your body through? And there it was, right there, instantaneously, transformation at a deep level that I said, yes, it's time to consciously choose. And so the outcome for me in choosing no, not me, was yes, healthy body, healthy living. That sticks. And it was a profound moment for me to understand how powerful a no can be, because the yes would have been out of alignment with what my inside said to do or not.
Right? Do you see that? Our yes is only as powerful as our no. And we don't do things because other people are doing them, and we don't do them because what other people are going to think, and we don't do them because we want to prove something, and we don't even want to do them because we think it's a lesson. Do you see? And then we ask the question, what is here for me? What is here for me? And then there's this profound revelation, oh my God. So turning away is as powerful and empowering as turning toward. Saying no, a clear, aligned no, not a no out of fear, not a no out of, oh, I can't do this, I'm so afraid, oh my God, right? It's not that kind of a no, but it's that clear and profound no that we get to say. And so it's really important when we think about our spiritual practice and our soaring with love, we're soaring in our own lives, not in someone else's, right? And we're not soaring according to somebody else's idea about what soaring in our life ought to look like. It is, after all, our life. We have to wake up to it every morning. We get to live in it 24/7. Those other people, they live in our life about 5 minutes. The 5 minutes they're talking about us, right? And then they go off to their own lives. And there we are. So we're soaring in our own lives and in the alignment with our own truth. And how powerful that is to reveal that. Now, the last piece of all of this, of soaring with love, there are not a lot of moral do's and don'ts in metaphysics. There's not a lot of ethical moralizing in New Thought and in the science of mind. You should do this, you should do that. Because, do you see, that's a part of this living according to somebody else's idea. It's always that inner alignment. But there are two profound places that the science of mind teaches that provide a boundary to this idea that we can create our own life and that we can soar in whatever way we choose. The first one, as many of you know, is we don't pray for someone who hasn't asked for it, especially our children and our partners, because we always know better than they do, don't we? We know what they should be doing. So it's not like you can't pray for people in accidents and comas, and you can always pray for love and highest and best good, but not like specific. I'm praying for my son to get a job so he'll get off my couch. Right? Or whatever it is, right? So we have an ethical prescription. Because why? Because it works. And you can get somebody something that they didn't actually want. But the second piece of that is We do no harm. And another way that it's written in the science of mind is that you can't want anything for yourself that you aren't willing to want for everybody else. Does that make sense? You can't want for yourself things that you aren't willing to want for others. Now, not the specific form, obviously, right? I want a job as a minister. You want a job as an accountant. I don't want my job for you, but meaningful work, right? Meaningful contribution, or whatever that is. We can't want for ourselves what we aren't willing to want for others. So our soaring with love, this piece of love that says, yes, I want my life to soar, and I want yours to soar also. And that has so much to do with how we see each other. Do we see each other as broken? Do we see each other as victims? Do we see each other as incapable? Do we see each other out of our judgments about how you are or aren't doing it right? Or do we see each other as the same outlet for life that we know we are? Do you see? In the most fundamental sense, from the science of mind point of view, this is what it means to love. It means to deeply and profoundly see the truth that who I see is also life being made manifest.
Yeah, so before I got there, I posted that I was going to this Firewalking Instructor Training, and a friend from the Bay Area who was my best friend for many years, she happened to see it, and she said, oh my gosh, Gabriella's going as well, who's someone she knows. And she tagged us, and it was like, oh, cool, it'll be nice to meet you. So there was a mutual friend connection. This was the one person I didn't know, but I at least felt like, oh, Gabriella, nice to meet you. And we ended up partnering on a process prior to a really big one for both of us. And so we were asked in the pouring rain, we were going to go outside in the pouring rain, and we were to choose someone, and it's an 8-foot piece of metal rebarb, steel, right? And we were to choose someone and put this rebarb right in the soft part of our neck. Both of us stand there and then trust one another and walk towards each other, and it would bend, providing all things go well. And the moment this was described and that we needed to choose someone, I turned immediately to Gabriella, and I saw her as this powerful, present, trustworthy person, and I said, I choose you. And it was interesting that she looked a little startled. She did. And we had already partnered on something, and she went, okay. I didn't understand it at the time, but it's how I saw her and how I held her that I confidently just said, you. I'd like to do this with you. And we went outside. It's on Facebook. I put the little video up. But we went outside, and some people didn't succeed prior to us. So the pair before us did not. And that was a little challenging for us to watch. And then it was our turn, and we just went, bam! It was so cool. Now, the interesting thing is afterwards, she came up to me, and she said, thank you. And I said, for what? She said, thank you. What you don't know is the last time I was here, I failed really bad at this, cried a lot, had a traumatic experience. But when you chose me, how you held me, how you saw me, how you just knew I was your partner, gave me the strength and the empowerment to say, okay. And I was like, wow, we never know. We never know. And we had this beautiful moment together. And it's how I saw her, and it lifted her up and allowed her to soar in that moment, and me too.
Yeah, do you see how important this is? We have to update our files about people. And the biggest update we have to make is, oh, you're a radiant, magnificent being of love and light. You're the place where love is showing up. You're the place where life is showing up. That's our biggest update of the files we have to make. We have to stop holding people into our stories about them. More importantly, we have to stop holding people in their stories about themselves. Now, this doesn't mean you make them wrong for the story in any way, shape, or form. It's how we see them in our own heart of hearts and through those beautiful eyes of God that Oscar sung about, right? Those beautiful eyes of God that see the spiritual truth. So, and then that helps other people not stay stuck in their own stories. You know, and what was so great about that story, what I really loved is that Karen didn't ask, well, why did you look at me funny? And she didn't have the opportunity to tell the story before the event happened, right? So she was popped out of that story because of how someone else saw her. So we give that gift to each other by seeing the truth in each other, but we can also allow someone to pop us out of our story by agreeing with how they see us. Do you see that? Sometimes we defend our story, don't we? But you don't really know how it is. And this is how I feel. This is how it's going on, right? And we defend that story by God, right? But we can allow how someone sees us to pop us out of our own story. And so in the way in which we see each other and be with each other and be that love and see that love, do you see, when we soar with love in our lives, we're not soaring over people. We're not soaring over the planet, like climbing over people to get to the top of the corporate ladder. Do you see what I'm saying? Right? We're not soaring over people. We're soaring in our own lives, and we're supporting and loving all of us to soar in our own unique and individual way. So one of the things that happened as Karen was sharing with me all these beautiful stories and everything that was going on, and it was, it was fun to hear it all and see the excitement and the enthusiasm. One of the things I asked Karen, especially around the story with the needle, when she chose not to do it. I asked her, well, what was everybody else like when you were walking, or you were not putting the needle in, or you were watching someone else do it? How did you guys hold each other? What was that all about?
Yeah, for 3 days, it was. This was also so empowering for me. Is here are people that didn't know each other well. We had not ever eaten in each other's home. We had, we hadn't gone on trips together. Whatever the case may be, we instantly started getting to know one another, and it was these processes where we had to lift each other up. We had to pay attention to one another. We had to note if something was going on right then in their life. We had to hold them, trust them. Yes, we had to trust them when you're falling 5 feet off the ground into someone's arms. And no matter at any moment, not everybody did everything, not everybody succeeded, quote unquote, but yet everyone did, because when the rebarb didn't bend or the board didn't break or something like that, we were all celebrating that they had faced it, they had moved through it, they didn't run away from it, they got the opportunity or the message out of it, and it was this collective, it was a community that literally lifted us up off the ground at all times, and we soared. We soared over fire, we soared over glass, we soared over whatever it was in front of us, and people, we didn't want to leave one another after 3 days. And they're already saying, I miss you, Rev Karen. They also now are probably watching talks. And it was so beautiful that there was no blame, there was no shame. It was all inner cheer, outer cheer. Sometimes we'd ask each other, well, do you want the outer cheer? You want to go, come on, you can break the board. And sometimes people would say no. And so we'd inner cheer. So we gave the support to the person because we're all unique. How did they want to be supported? And we lifted each other up. Sounds like a nice community, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Right? Which is, of course, why we're in community together. Why we practice that. But not so that we can pat ourselves on the back and say, oh, look, we're radically inclusive. We're so cool. Aren't we cool? Right? No, it's an opportunity to practice. to practice that, and to be that not only here. This is our primary place of practice, but also so that we can move in the world in that same way. So I want to read this from our beautiful book. We are a center in the consciousness of God, and since God is everywhere, it naturally follows that we always stand at the threshold of divine wisdom, infinite peace, and perfect power. We may enter in and possess this kingdom of good if we have the will to do so. But first we must have the faith that such a kingdom exists. Here is where the soul, as Emerson said, makes its great claim on God. We must dare to believe not only that there is a secret place of the Most High, but that we are in it now. Is it then so difficult to believe in good instead of evil? To have faith in victory rather than fear of defeat? What if our problems are great individually and collectively? What if our problems are great individually and collectively? Is there not one greater than all these difficulties? So do you see, when we soar with love, we're recognizing that life is lifting all of us, and that we're participating in that life, learning to trust the impulse for good and the power for love to be revealed, that we're trusting that is actually what's happening, not just in our own individual lives, but in humanity itself and in consciousness as a whole. And the truth is, if nothing can stand in the way of our own personal obstacles, nothing can stand in the way of any obstacles that we perceive in the world either. Nothing. Not racism, not poverty, not homelessness, not hunger, not divisiveness, not any of the things that we say and we feel like they're so complicated and they're so deeply rooted and they're so whatever. There is nothing that can stand in the way of this power. And when we participate in that in our own lives, and we see others in that same light, and we move in the world with that same confidence that we can walk over the fire. We can walk over the fire of difficulty. We can walk over the fire of, I don't really know how to do this. We can walk over the fire of, what if I offend you? We can walk over the fire of, what if you don't like me? Whatever it is, we can walk over that fire individually and collectively. And here's the thing that I think is so amazing. If we understand that we are a center of consciousness, do you see that when consciousness is lifted, when our lives are lifted and our consciousness is lifted, all of consciousness is lifted as a whole? Our work that we do in our own individual lives and the way that we work in the world is not only doing the doingness of it, but it is lifting the whole consciousness so that we all soar with love, so that we all have the ability to live the life of our dreams. So let us soar with love together.
Yes. So we're going to end on one more reading from this exquisite book. And if you did not buy this, I truly invite you to, so you can be with it. And I also want to thank all of you for lifting me up, supporting, so that I could go learn how to do this, so I could bring it back so we can all experience it in classes, in retreats, and at the Firewalk in November. So thank you for all of your love and support as well. So I invite you to go into that place where love soars. The Upanishads inform us that by the knowledge of God, the bonds of ignorance and unhappiness are destroyed. The Talmud says, "Pray not the sinners may perish, but that the sin itself may disappear." This means that evil has no existence in itself. For if we persist in seeing the true rather than the false, then the false will disappear and the true will make its appearance. In the midst of confusion, there is a place of peace. In the midst of sorrow, the joy of life persists. The science of mind teaches us to look for good instead of evil, to praise and not to condemn, to bless and curse not, to live each day as though the Spirit were guiding us, to have a firm conviction that we are counseled by divine wisdom and protected by infinite love. We should at all times sense this overshadowing presence and have implicit confidence in its direction. No matter what the doubts and fears of yesterday were, the affirmations of today may rise triumphant over them. If we persist in seeing beauty, beauty will appear. Let us no longer weep over the mistakes of yesterday. This is futile. We must learn to forgive ourselves even as we forgive others. Let us remember that each day is a fresh beginning. Every day is the world made new. It makes no difference how unhappy or fearful we may have been in the past. Today presents itself as a new opportunity. Today we may start life afresh. This hope overcomes despair. Faith vanquishes. Fear and defeat is swallowed up in victory. And so today is anew. It's made anew in this moment, in this place, in this sanctuary. We are triumphant and soar with love. And so it is.